What's up, everyone? Welcome back to A Line on the Stars. I'm Jordan, and we're back today with another episode of the Razor Crest for Wonderfest. That one's kind of fun to say. And our green strawberry build. Now today is going to be a little bit of a different take on how I shoot my videos. In going through and deciding how I'm going to do this, I had to really decide what the approach is going to be and how I want to try to build this model both efficiently and with a high level of detail and care and not messing anything up. Now, the way I normally record is fairly easy for me to do. Just do some planning and I build in little segments and move on. That works for a long-term series, and it works kind of, for, the way that I like to approach things and kind of the way I like to shoot. But for the Razor Crest, I need time. I need time to build the model. I need time to assemble all of the mods, and I can't be breaking this down into small little bits anymore. I'm getting very close to Wonderfest, and it is time to really buckle down and get this work done. And so what I've decided to do is basically just record my building session, and then I'm just going to narrate over the top. I'm not the biggest fan of doing this, but it is something that I want to try because, once again, I'm learning how to do things, and I think that this shooting style will allow for me to do some more complex builds in the future, and I have some pretty cool models coming up that I'm looking forward to building as our current series come to a close. So, for this episode, I am going to be narrating over the top, and then we'll come back here at the very end and do one of our regular segments that we do, and we'll be talking about what's coming up next. So, let's go ahead and start here, and we're going to be starting with assembling the VTOL thrusters. Alright, so, for the VTOL thrusters, I had a pretty good idea of what I was trying to do. The problem is, especially with the frustration that I've had so far with this kit, is that the VTOL thrusters and most of these mods are set up for the Revell kit and not the AMT kit. And so things just don't quite fit properly. I was having to do a lot of modification work to the resin pieces, as you can see here, using a razor saw, and then eventually I just wound up using a pair of nippers to cut off the ends of my pieces there, and I had to really thin down this piece because it did not want to fit into this groove. The thing that I found really frustrating is when you hooked up the piece on the bottom, there was a slight gap, and you might be able to catch it here. And there's a slight gap right where my right thumb is, and that's on a part that I didn't even modify. That was just the stock part, and it's supposed to fit. There you see it right there. And it was really frustrating to me. I had to figure out when I was creating the first engine pod, I had to use some styrene, and I had to figure this out and how to basically get it so it looked like it's a recessed piece, but it was one of those things where, like, how do I get it to make it look like a recessed piece but also do light blocking and all of the rest? So what I wound up doing is just kind of cutting I don't even know what that type of shape is. And of course I'm dropping things as I'm going along. But I wind up cutting a rectangular shape that had offset sides. And I wound up basically gluing it to the inside of the VTOL thruster, as you can see here. The first time that I had done this, it was very difficult to figure out the shape, how to place it, and basically I was very surprised at the results that I had gotten, and the first results were better than the second results. The first engine pod wound up actually turning out a lot better. Now, that's probably because it took me probably 5 or 6 days to assemble it very slowly, so I can learn what to do, so I can do it all in one session here. And that tends to be how I do things. I will, like in a two-part, like say for the nacelles for the Enterprise C, I was able to build the first nacelle and then, basically build the second one on camera. And that works for how I shoot things, and that even for here, that's still how I'm going to be applying it. Now I was able to get the piece of styrene to match up and block off the inside so you can't see inside of the engine pod. We are now gluing our piece into place, and this is where it all begins. I fit these pieces really well. How it lined up and fit into the part that I cut, it wound up working out perfectly. I did wind up adding a piece of the stock model to the very end of the VTOL thruster. I just glued it into place, sanded it down, and then gave it a slight panel line to make it look like it actually was supposed to be like that because I'd cut it just a little too short. I'm now using some black CA, and I use this as probably my primary light blocking method and gluing method on the inside of our parts. I use the clear CA, the medium solution, to join the parts, and then I use the black CA to do light blocking and connect the parts from the inside. And just as a reminder, of course, you only want to use CA when putting together your resin pieces. Regular modeling cement will not work. And here is where I get clever and taking a little bit of a trick that I used for the Enterprise C's nacelles, and I took a piece of sprue. And basically what I had done with the Enterprise C for fixing the LED system that I put in place into the nacelles, I basically created a post. And so what I did is I used some black CA and just put a little dab down. And then I stuck the piece of sprue, and basically I'd measured before, like I had taken the exact same piece in the exact same, there's two of the same sprue. These are sprues for the, oh, what was it? Oh, I can't even remember what the sprue was for. I think it was the Perfect Grade Falcon, actually. So it had the same size sprue on a different matching sprue. That's too many times saying sprue. But I knew the size that I needed to get, and so I just needed to go ahead and glue it in place, and then hold it, and then leave it for a few minutes. Over time, I wound up using a little bit of kicker to get it to go, and really stick into place, and then a little bit more glue around the outside. Now here I am introducing my custom LED piece, and just kind of getting everything fit, and basically trying to figure out what I'm going to do. What I had found is that although everything fit inside properly when I created the LED piece, when I finally decided to, well, not when I first decided, but when I had finally installed the piece on the first one, I needed a little bit more room and a little bit more space between the LEDs and the clear part for the engines. And so what I had done is I basically just took, as you can see there, a zip tie and folded very carefully the wires in half. Then I took the leads for the LED and the wire leads and basically just kind of wrapped them around the front. Didn't really matter where they went, I just needed to get them moving towards the back. I learned a few things about how to apply LED in the future. Now here we are beginning to assemble the engine mod. This one is pretty cool. What we're starting with is taking a little bit of CA and putting the outer, there's two little rings on the inner part of the engine, and we're going to be putting the outer in first, and just a tiny drop of CA in 4 spots basically. I didn't want to ring the whole thing because I didn't want to have any of that CA basically go out and cloud the piece. And as you can see, I have some CA in between my fingers, and you guys know just how much I love that. Then for the middle piece, we are going to simply do the same thing and just put a tiny drop of CA in 4 corners. And my finger. And using my tweezers, I go ahead and place our piece directly in the middle, and then you get to see my forehead here in a quick second. I'm still lucky I have my hair. That was not the case for my dad. And we're just very carefully, now it's totally off topic, but very carefully centering that piece right inside. Now the cool thing is the piece that goes right over the top, it basically this piece right here, it will only fit exactly where it's supposed to go once you got the center rings put in. So once again, just using 4 dots of CA, I place this directly over the top, slot it down, and that is the completion of the engine mod. Very simple. There was a lot of gluing and different pieces that we had to put together, but yeah, there was a lot of work that went into getting those ready to go. So now what I'm doing is working on some light blocking. I was inspecting the VTOL thruster and was taking a look and with a flashlight and wound up finding some light bleed. And so what I'm using is some Vallejo plastic putty. I've actually come to really like this stuff. You're able to clean it off with water and it comes off clean. It's amazing. Check out Vallejo plastic putty. The link that will be down in the description for the equipment used in this episode. Now here we are installing the flaps. The flaps. So this was an extraordinarily difficult mod to pull off. In the instructions from Green Strawberry, it only lists the parts for the Revell kit. The Revell kit and the AMT kits are very similar, but they have different part numbers because they're different kits. So when Green Strawberry, and by they I mean Green Strawberry, and I've let them know, when they basically put together the instructions for this, they called it an AMT kit, but really it's the Revell kit. And so in my tutorial episode, I had shown you which parts to cut, and I had gotten the first engine pod correct. I did not get this one correct, and so it took a lot of modifications to get this one to go. I am going to be revising that video in the future because it is a little bit frustrating, to be honest. I've been working on putting together some instructions for Green Strawberry as well, which is proving to be very difficult. Now, installing of the resin piece for the flaps was actually fairly easy. You just had to cut it down, get it sized properly, and then you had to work through all of the different pieces that basically what I had to do was fit everything. So slide the piece in and sand each side and make sure that each side was fitting properly. And then eventually you got it so it was a nice flush finish. After I put my initial CA on the inside of the piece, basically to glue it in place, I once again am using black CA to install and light block our different pieces. And then our first real assembly begins. So this is going to be our first panel that attaches to where we just created that piece. Now, a regret that I have here is not right now. I have the regret, and as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, Jordan, you idiot. But it was too late. And that regret was I did not put the LED in place. As you can see, I have the the flaps sitting over the top, and it proved to make things a little bit difficult. I had done that in the previous pod, not in this one. Using the engine mod is the key here. You want to set that engine mod in as soon as you have two pieces connected. It's going to keep the shape, and it's going to keep your pieces round as you go along. It also did not require any CA because the parts were fitted so perfectly, they fit perfectly in the slots. The engine mod, by far, the engine mod has been my favorite mod so far, and it is one of the ones that led me to building this mod. So after a little bit of light blocking and gluing, I'm going ahead and drilling out the hole that I need for my LEDs. I tried to fashion it so that I could run it through the same post that it's connected to the Razor Crest itself, but the problem is those connections are very small, and I wasn't able to figure out a way of engineering one that didn't damage the model. So I identified the spot on the internal part of the top of the ship that we're going to be drilling in. It's early in the morning, my friends. That we're going to be drilling in to match up on the other side. Now, what I've done here, in order to get the LED setup that I had done on the post, I basically just took the back of a screwdriver there and rounded out the edge, and then I simply just slotted that over the top of the post that we had created using the sprue, as you can see here, and I'm just going through and regretting right now what I've done. It's so funny when I'm recording, you know, like I kind of realize this now as I go along. When I'm recording, oh bloody, I do things. Comparatively to when I'm practicing and all that, like I take my time and I'm like, yeah, you know, I should really, you know, take my time and make sure that I'm pulling these through before I install this. So I had to work around, and I could have just uninstalled that, but things were happening. I was probably about 40 minutes into the build at this point, and I was like, oh man, this is getting difficult. When you're building them pieces slowly, it's very easy. So now what I'm doing right now is basically adjusting all of my LEDs. I want them to be facing, I want them basically to be at, well, that would be 2, 10, 4, and what would that be, 7? Yeah, on the clock. And so I wanted the 4 LEDs on the outside, the flickering LEDs, which you're about to see here in a second, I want them to be at those positions, with the red being right in the middle. Now, this is so cool. It's turned out really good. I'm really proud of that. It turned out really, really good. Sometimes I have an idea, and it works. And, yeah. We'll see a little bit more of this as we go along, but I'm just going through and making sure that everything is positioned correctly, because I haven't glued the LED into place yet, and I just want to make sure that before I do, that it winds up looking really good. At this point, I think I was just staring at it going, oh my god, this is amazing. And basically, while we're in there, you're able to just manipulate it, right? It's just wires, and so I was able to just kind of push them, bend them, move them around, and get it so that it was just exactly where I was looking for it to be. It turned out really good. And then begins the light blocking. A few things that I learned. I learned quite a bit during this process. This build has actually taught me quite a bit for trying to do high quality work, and that is watching my sanding. I was aggressively sanding these pieces because there was a lot of flash on this model, and unfortunately I focused a little too hard around the ends there and didn't bother to match my pieces up. So tip and trick for you all: when sanding your flash off, be very careful and make sure that you're lining your pieces up properly as you go along. And for the putty there, I'm just once again using the Vallejo plastic putty. Now, it's time to glue down the LED. It is definitely a, what's the word to say? It's a nerve-wracking moment, because once that's on there, it's on there. And, you know, it could be, like, I've actually taken apart one of those little posts before. Yeah, I was happy here. I waited a little bit for it to settle in. But, yeah, I've actually taken one of those posts off, and it had taken apart and, like, broke the LED, and so it was a moment of stress. Now, for the plastic putty, all you need to do to clean up the edges and where you don't want it to be, I used a combination of two things. I used a pointy, basically like a pencil point silicone brush, and then to basically go in and line my pieces so that it looked like there was actual panel liner, or not panel liner, but your panel lines are in there. And then all you need to do is just use water on a Q-tip to get your piece, or get the plastic putty removed. It comes off super clean. I am in love. I'm not a big fan of all of the different types of putties that are out there, and so far this one is the best application. And the fact that I can put a precision applicator at the very end makes me very happy. So here, as you can see here to the right where my right finger is, that little hole that exists down below, that panel that I'm currently trying to install is the one that was cut incorrectly. I cut this one as if it was supposed to be the middle and the top panel up there, but it was not. So here we are, cutting that top panel that was actually the one that needed to be cut. Oh my goodness, it was awful. I had to cut this piece apart, basically have two half panels, as you can see here. And then on that panel there on the right side, just underneath my arm, I wind up taking that little piece that was in the middle and using it to create a new panel just below the flaps mod. And here, just going through and fitting. Unfortunately, I had done a poor job, if you can see there, and I kind of motioned there on the camera. I had done a poor job of cutting and was a little frustrated. I should have busted out the rotary saw. The razor saw works in some applications, but I really should have just used the rotary tool here to separate that piece. Now, as you can see here, right below the black CA, that is the little panel piece that we created and cut off of the piece that I'm currently installing right now, and we're going to be using that to create a whole new panel, and that is a whole new learning experience for me, and that's where this engine pod really kind of takes on some I need to do things to fix this. I hope that weathering helps, so to say. So as we go through and we're installing, you can see here that the part is going together fairly nice. So it just becomes a matter of like getting everything precision put in place. And once again, this is not how this is supposed to go together. That part that I just removed is supposed to have a different piece on it. So it was a matter of like, how are we going to get this properly installed? So without really thinking about it, I remember telling myself, let's just go, man. Like, let's go. Let's get this done. And so we go ahead and use our clear CA and get it put in place. And we put the top panel in first, because what I found is that in order to light block, the model really wants you to build it the other way. And the kit from Green Strawberry also wants you to build it the other way as well. So we were building that first panel that's down below that I miscut. Basically wants you to build it that way, but I was not able to do any light blocking. And so that's where I, once again, after every panel that was installed, I went ahead and hooked up my lights, and I wanted to make sure that I was going through and finding all of the different pieces of, like gaps, anything, and I would light block using any sort of technique that I could, be it the plastic putty like here. So I'm using plastic putty on the outside of the model, and I really love like this stuff. What I was able to do is I was kind of like pushing in and pulsing as I was going along, and you kind of see it here. I was trying to create fake weld lines, if that makes any sense, and the plastic putty really allowed for me to get that specifically in the spot where we had to create the panel. But I was using, once again, the putty and cleaning it off, and using a pencil point silicone brush to push those down into the lines, and then all you got to do is just use the Q-tip to clean off all of the putty. It's glorious. Definitely the Vallejo plastic putty. Mind blown. My mind was blown. It worked really, really well. I would say though that if you can avoid using putty and take your time and properly sand, like I said, the thing that I think I learned most here in this model build so far is that sanding and how you sand matters. Paying attention to your connection points and the two pieces that you're sanding and how they butt together. That was definitely something that I wasn't paying attention to and should have been, and definitely will be for the rest of this model and every model going forward. So we're installing the part that wasn't cut properly, and with the VTOL thrusters, things have happened here. So I'm taking more putty, and I'm just basically going through, and right up here is where I didn't cut very well. And, yeah. There's a lot of putty work that wound up happening on the side of this, specifically this side. And unfortunately, it's not the side that faces towards the inside of the engine pod, or not the engine pod, but where it connects to the ship. And so it is in a very, very visible place. But it is what it is, and so more light blocking commences. This plastic putty, I just keep saying it. I know I'll obsess about things while I'm going through and doing my videos, but this plastic putty is just amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Alright, so now I'm taking some black CA and looking on the inside of the model while I am... I lit it up so that I can actually see inside. There comes a point like where I couldn't really see inside the model anymore. So what I'm doing is gluing along the inside where the VTOL thrusters connect to that panel line where we had just... Or the panel line, not the panel, not the panel line that we just assembled. And more putty work. Taking a look around, as you can see here, I was wiping it off on my hands because I wasn't sure where else to wipe that off. It was an adventure. It was a lot of putty. The first engine pod did not need this much light bleed work. I think I just got super excited when I was sanding these pieces for whatever reason. It just did not turn out well. So now we are assembling the piece that we just modified. Yeah, and I realized that there was some paint here, and so make sure, clean up your parts. There was a little bit of paint sitting around the edge there. Well, it wasn't paint, but it was flash that had a bunch of paint on it that I didn't want to get spread around. So we're installing one of our very last pieces here. And these last couple of pieces together went together really, really well. You know, obviously there's small pieces, and I keep thinking about that little panel there in the middle that we have to create right now. I was like, which way is this going to look good? And it was that way. And being that I did such a hack job, I had to go through and straighten up our edges. I, unfortunately, in here did some things with my single-bladed nippers, and I think I need to go get a new pair. So, that is what that is. These are just the nippers that everyone gets at the very beginning. So, the challenge here was getting this glued into place, and then how do we get it glued in and make it look like it's part of the model? And I think I succeeded fairly well. It was through careful fitting. I probably edited out about 10 minutes of sanding and fitting and sanding and fitting to get the panel just the way I wanted it. So simply just get this set into place, and for somehow, some way, it immediately just kind of stuck. So what I've done is, this was like another 20-30 minutes, like seriously, another 20-30 minutes of like various putty work to get that installed. And I was like, ugh, we're still not even done yet because I have to get this piece connected up. So what we had here, because these parts were never meant to go together, the piece that I just created and the piece that was originally there for the stock part, it took some modification. There was a lot of sanding going into work there. So as we install the second to final piece there, other than the front of the engine, everything at this point is starting to look good, but not great. I really did struggle here to get a proper job done. It was puttying, cleaning up, puttying, cleaning up, puttying, cleaning up. It was over and over and over again to get this piece to really look the way I wanted it to look. I succeeded, but even now, when looking at it, I'm like, you know, if you had only paid attention to the crappy instructions closer. I had cut and done things and then done the instruction set, and for whatever reason, I did not bother to test the second piece that we had done. So I bothered fitting the first engines, but not the second one. And so, as you see here, I got a lot of that plastic putty. I am just going through and doing things. But then, this is the beauty of it. You just take your wet Q-tip with some water and simply get it cleaned off. It does leave a bit of a residue behind. So, you know, we obviously took this back into... Yeah, look at that. We took this back into the paint booth afterwards and got this all cleaned up. So just more putty work, more cleanup. It was definitely a lot of work to get all of that done. Now, as we go through to install our final piece at the front of the engine pod, this is where things start to really come together for me, and I realize that the sanding just did not happen correctly. Just the bottom left there, it's not fitting properly. And the reason it's not fitting properly is I sanded off the tab that it's supposed to be connecting. I am frustrated at this point, and I see what I've done wrong. And so I do some more sanding around the outside, and then I'm just like, you know what, we're going to have to deal with this and see about puttying it, see how it goes after it paints. So we just take a little bit of our CA, and I could have used cement at this point, as we were just going to regular stock model to stock model, but it was one of those things where decided that it would be much better to just go ahead and install and see what happens with the CA. I just prefer the CA in the end. It bonds so much faster. And there it is. I am fairly pleased at this point. A little bit of light bleed work still needs to be done. I take care of that off camera, and then there was a piece of something inside the engine pod, and I'm glad that I shook that, because that would have been embarrassing to find much later on. So there it is. After assembly, at this point, you know, things have gone together. I was able to make everything work. I was able to get it all assembled. And as we talk about here in the coming up segments, and I show you both engine pods together, it winds up being one of those things where I am both proud and a little about it. But this effect, my friends, is one of the best. And I gotta say, I'm really proud of the work that was just done. So, see you soon. Alright, my friends, here we are. Now, I gotta say that this went together both well and not well. I got the very first one that I assembled, and I believe it is not this one. It is this one. And the one that I assembled before I did the recording so I can learn how to do it just turned out gloriously. It turned out beautifully. I wound up getting some of the all-clad jet exhaust and going ahead and just getting the outside taken care of here at the cone, and then I'm going to go ahead and take care of some of that jet exhaust here as we get towards the end of the model series, as we're going towards the weathering. And so this first part turned out really well. The first pod, I'm very pleased. I got all of my cuts correct. Everything, like with a little bit of modification, went together really, really well. Now, the part that I built on screen, this piece here, I had to cut as I described, and I basically had to create the piece. it did not go together as well as I was hoping. And to be honest with you, it really had to do with the poor instructions. I've gone ahead and emailed Green Strawberry, let them know what's going on. I let them know that their kit is set up for Revell and not for the AMT kit. And so it definitely caused a couple of issues. Now, I was able to get this correct mostly. Thankfully, I was able to get this fixed. But in the process, like right here, just doesn't look the greatest. I'm hoping that with the weathering, I'll be able to get it fixed. But I was able to make it work. The VTOL thrusters, as I described, you know, they're not quite right. Like like no matter amount of modification that I did, they just didn't turn out right because they're not right. They're meant for the Revell kit, and so that's one thing that I would say is that you know, that basically, you know, these, I'm gonna have to like make sure that I'm being very careful going forward, that you know, I'm getting this right, because you know, this pod just did not go together correct. Now I gotta say, the result turned out well. I was able to get it back into the booth, and we were able to get it sprayed up and get it cleaned up and all of that. But yeah, overall, just kind of like a so-so job. And so I'm hoping that with the weathering and all the various things that we're going to be doing to this, and the amazing job that the lights look like, we're going to get to here in just a second. The amazing job that this looks like, you know, like it winds up looking really, really good. And so let's go ahead and get everything powered up, shall we? So there it is, my friends. I gotta say that turned out really, really well. I'm very proud of the work that was done here, specifically when it comes to the engine mod here at the very end. Just getting this lighting effect with my custom LEDs, man, it really did turn out to look so good. The overall quality of this is just it takes away from the fact that one of these engine pods is definitely a little janky. And so yeah, my friends, there it is. And so this turned out really, really well. I did get all this light blocked, except for obviously here at the sides where it connects up to the ship. But there it is, my friends. We have accomplished 3 mods plus a custom lighting mod. So I guess it would be 4 mods just in the engine pods. The 4 mod engine pods? Huh. I think I know the name of the episode. The 4 mod engine pods. Sometimes inspiration strikes in the weirdest ways. Yeah, so we have the VTOL thrusters. We have, now keep in mind, I'm not going to be putting any of the photo etch on until we get to the very end of the model here. So we have the VTOL thrusters, we have the flaps, we have the engines mod, and then we have my custom lighting. So there it is, my friends. And I gotta say that this was a tough one. This took me a whole week and a half to put together, get everything together with the lighting, get all my parts closely and carefully fixed and put into place, practiced, and then shot. And as you guys saw, you know, I've kind of taken a little bit of a different approach with most of the shooting for this model. I think at the beginning, at the end of the segments for this model series, we're going to be talking, you know, more of this sort of format, but I just need to record and build as we're going along. So I got less than a month before Wonderfest, and we got to get this done. So that's what I got for you guys today. In the next episode, we're going to be moving on to the internal parts of the Razor Crest and starting to build the cargo bay mod by building Mando's bathroom and his bedroom. It's going to be pretty damn cool. So that's what I got for you today, and I just want to say thank you. I know that there was a million things y'all could have done today. Instead, you spent a couple minutes with me, watching me build a model, which I think is pretty damn cool. If you guys have any questions, comments, tips, tricks, please leave them down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please like and subscribe. And my friends, until we see each other again, I hope you all have a wonderful day in this beautiful world, wherever you happen to be. And just remember that this is the way.